What is going on, you guys? It's your boy John, and welcome back to First Person Reviewer, and a very welcome to the spoiler review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. If any of you guys are just coming from the spoiler-free review of Justice League, I just wanted to thank you tremendously for sticking out this long and for coming to this spoiler section. For any support, it is really such a blessing to be doing this, guys. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for just letting me fanboy. Although it is in the title and really shouldn't be said, just because we're in a time nowadays where you really have to exclamate this kind of stuff, this is a full spoiler review, guys. Full spoilers. All 6 parts and the epilogue, every single little thing. If you haven't seen it, please back out and feel free to watch my spoiler-free review. But if you've already sat through all 4 hours and are ready to get to the juice of this film, then buckle up because we're about to go on a journey. Part 1, Don't Count on It, Batman. The film opens with the first initial 9 minutes making up the opening title sequence, which I was very surprised to find out that the theatrical cut's opening sequence was actually not Snyder's. This really surprised me given the fact that it was very reminiscent of the opening title sequence from his Watchmen film, but Snyder's Justice League opening begins right where we left off from BVS, with the death of Superman at the hands of Doomsday. This served a far superior opening to the theatrical that really sets the stage for the tone of this film, with Superman's wails of agony echoing across the globe, being heard by Atlanteans, Amazonians, and more importantly, the mother boxes, which awaken and call out to Steppenwolf to be retrieved. I really loved everything about this opening scene, how it lined up and paralleled with Batman vs. Superman, how it showed that Victor was already cyborg at the time of this event, and just how pivotal Superman's death was in this ongoing story within the DCEU. Opposed to Whedon's awful opening sequence on the rooftops of Gotham with an out-of-character Batman setting up this dumb plot thread of the parademons being attracted to fear, and him discovering the mother boxes through fucking square imprints on the wall from a parademon exploding. As a whole, this part is easily one of the best of these 6 parts, primarily centering around the introduction of Batman and Wonder Woman, along with Aquaman's first appearance. Both Bruce and Diana are treated with respect during their introductions, and both of their scenes are largely superior to their theatrical counterparts, without any of Whedon's cringe, awkward-humored Batman.
I hear you can talk to fish.
Do you talk to fish?
With Wonder Woman specifically, the hostage scene that acts as her introduction is incredible and 10 times better than the theatrical. It is a far more intense scene, largely due to the score that continually complements and molds this film's tone into such an epic scale. Structurally, it's relatively the same, but the criminals here actually gun down and kill people when they arrive, providing some actual stakes for the scene rather than just guys holding guns and making threats. Wonder Woman feels like a true warrior in this scene and actually takes some of these guys' lives. This is the Wonder Woman that I love, and the one that aligns more with the one from Batman vs. Superman that I really loved. There is also some screen time to catch up with Lois Lane and Martha Kent, who were largely absent for Whedon's cut, providing exposition leading into the Kent house being reclaimed, and also giving us a glimpse of Lois in the grieving process post Superman's death. There is actually a very meta Easter egg in one of my favorite Easter eggs throughout the entire film, during a scene of Lois exiting a cafe where you get a very brief glimpse of Zack Snyder himself. This exact cafe that she exits from is the same cafe that Snyder would spend most of his mornings and afternoons in, writing the storyboard for this very film. But the real meat and bones of this chapter is its final act on Themyscira during the Amazonian sequence, where Steppenwolf comes to retrieve the first mother box and engages in an epic battle between the Amazonians. This scene was incredible. I mean, it is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, and without a doubt one of the peaks of the film. The Amazonian extras are excellently casted. They really surprised the shit out of me during this scene, especially in comparison to the theatrical, which was way more brief of an encounter. What I loved most about this scene was just how much better their contingency plan was for dealing with a situation like this, by collapsing the entire temple in on itself and actually sacrificing themselves in the process. Whereas in Justice League, they literally just shut the doors. That's it. They just close the passageway, and Steppenwolf literally ends up just coming out from the side of the temple like nothing. Like he might as well have just bursted through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. And this is a mother box that they obtained thousands of years ago from the very same man, and they've been protecting it for thousands of years, knowing that one day, someday, someone would come for it. And their plan was to just close the door. Literally every single thing about this scene succeeds the theatrical in every possible way. I mean, literally everything about it. I fucking love Steppenwolf's axe in this scene. I love Steppenwolf's axe during this entire movie. It has like this really cool lightning element to it when he swings and hits the Amazonians or when he hits the ground. I don't know what the hell this thing is supposed to be. Like, it just has like, I don't even know. Like, what is that? Is it energy? Is it like power? Is it just a filter, an effect? I don't know. Part 2, The Age of Heroes, opens up with Steppenwolf arriving and establishing a base at a nuclear plant in Chernobyl for the mother boxes to feed off of its radiation. Over time, with the addition of each mother box, the base begins to evolve and start terraforming, eventually gaining a tower at its center with several sentry guns and even gaining a barrier that shields its perimeter. The mother box also allows for Steppenwolf to communicate with Desaad, Darkseid's right-hand man on Apocalypse, that also provides for some really great exchanges between the two. I really love how Desaad was executed in this film. His design and voice acting was excellent, and he's a really important character to Darkseid's character. I also really loved the unique way that they communicated with one another, with the mother box melting and molding the steel that it is imprinted into, shaping it into Desaad's figure, which was also very reminiscent of the Kryptonian technology showcased on Man of Steel. Neither this feature or the character of Desaad was present in Whedon's cut, and Steppenwolf essentially arrives at this power plant and says, well, this looks pretty rad and evil. I guess this is our base now. One of my favorite differences within this film is how well Snyder directed the parademons, which was one of my biggest disappointments in the theatrical. But here, they are truly terrifying. I was very surprised and very satisfied with how well they were done. They were very intimidating and actually felt like they posed a real threat, unlike the squishy parademons that were filled with fucking Nickelodeon slime.
Yes, it was gross. Oh.
Silas Stone, Victor's father, makes his first appearance in this chapter and is given a lot more time at Star Labs, alongside Ryan Choi, who was supposed to go on to become the Atom eventually, but was, you guessed it, cut out by Whedon. I really enjoyed the sequence of Diana exploring the Amazon temple and discovering the history of Darkseid's first attempt at invasion through several murals and paintings across the wall. It was very Indiana Jonesy and in line with her archaeological work, and it really gives Diana some more character outside of her Wonder Woman persona. Soon after, there's an undersea exchange between Arthur and Falco, Willem Dafoe's character that debuted in James Wan's Aquaman, who was entirely removed from the theatrical cut, in turn entirely removing a large part of Aquaman's character development. This scene is very pivotal in fleshing out Arthur's decision to once again involve himself not only in Atlantis, but in the surface world as well, after so many years of shutting himself out from both. It also shows us his Atlantean armor and his mother's trident that he will later come to obtain, instead of him just showing up with both of them because he's Aquaman. At the time of the theatrical, it wasn't even made apparent that the trident belonged to his mother. That piece of information isn't given to us until James Wan's Aquaman. But the peak of this chapter, and arguably the peak of the film, was the flashback to Darkseid's first invasion. Holy shit. This was something that I thought that I would maybe never see in my life. Honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever get to see this done in the DCEU in live action, and it was fucking glorious. Instead of centering around Steppenwolf, this offers our first real look at Darkseid for the first time. Or rather, should I say, our first look at Euxis, given the fact that that scene is thousands of years in the past before he actually became Darkseid and acquired the Omega effect and the Omega beams. This scene is incredible. It's something I really only ever dreamed of seeing. It features Atlanteans, Amazonians, Green Lanterns, the tribes of men, the old gods, the new gods, the parademons. It was a wet dream for me, honestly. The entire scope of this scene is magnified by such an incredible and epic score, alongside broad cinematic shots that exuded the same fantasy spectacle energy as The Lord of the Rings. Probably the sole addition from the Whedon cut that I actually did wish was in this cut as well was the scene showing Yalin Gur, the Green Lantern, actually making some brief constructs rather than just firing simple energy beams. That's one thing, if anything at all, that Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern did get right, was the way that they utilized constructs in that movie. And I'm very eager to see how they're utilized in the DCEU when we eventually get the Green Lantern Corps. Part 3, Beloved Mother, Beloved Son, essentially centers around Cyborg and Flash above all, opening up with our first look at Central City and introducing the Flash an hour into this film, opposed to the Whedon cut that introduced the Flash relatively within the first few minutes.
What, you got a problem?
No, there's no problem.
Better not be.
We are first introduced to Barry applying at a job at a pet store that then transitions into a beautifully and stunningly shot Speed Force sequence where Barry saves Iris West, Flash's soon-to-be love interest, which once again, to no surprise, was completely cut by Whedon. Barry was easily one of the best characters in the film this movie, and that was very surprising to me considering that I did not care for him in Whedon's cut at all, and that was largely due to Whedon's creative decisions regarding this character.
Like brunch, what is brunch?
He's significantly more fleshed out, and he's just a big doofy fanboy in this, but not in a way that betrayed his intelligence.
Wow, it's like a cave. Like a bat cave.
Or in a way that belittled his capabilities, especially in the final act. There are some added bits of Lois Lane in the grieving process that really helps flesh out her and Clark's relationship and makes their future reunion a lot more emotionally driven and satisfying. But the absolute heart of this chapter, and really this film, is without a doubt Cyborg. As I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, Ray Fisher really got the shit end of the stick during this film, and all the character development and everything that made Cyborg an interesting and compelling character was completely ripped from him in the theatrical. But he really shines in this chapter, and we get to see his life before the accident, his relationship with his mother, the aftermath of the accident, and how the mother box actually formed his cybernetic body, and a visually rich and detailed exposition sequence explaining to both Cyborg and the audience what he is now truly capable of. Zack brilliantly showcased just how much of a powerhouse Cyborg really is and gave that character the well-deserved respect instead of just giving him jetpacks and an arm cannon and calling it a day. The chapter then comes to a conclusion with Steppenwolf arriving at Atlantis to acquire the second mother box. This was yet again another scene that was far superior to the theatrical, with some very intense action capitalizing on the R rating, with Atlanteans getting sliced left and right and the sea becoming murky with their blood. I really loved this entire scene, but I hate Amber Heard so much. I hate that I had to see her face for more than even a second.
This is the worst. You are the worst. I hate looking at your face. I want to smash it.
And I really love the character of Mira. She is one of my favorite Atlanteans, so it is just even more of an offense that she has to be played by her. One of the things that I really love about this cut and prefer over the theatrical edition is the fluidity of the location of the mother boxes and how Steppenwolf obtains each one. It is much more easier to follow along with where each one is, and the scenes where he actually obtains them feels way more earned and impactful, rather than him just fucking showing up and taking them like nothing. Part 4, Change Machine, is the shortest chapter and the one that finally brings our Justice League together, with Wonder Woman, Flash, and Batman accompanied by Cyborg trailing Steppenwolf into the Gotham City tunnels to retrieve Cyborg's father, Silas, after he was kidnapped by Steppenwolf in an attempt to find the third mother box. This scene is among the few other scenes that largely play out the same as the theatrical, minus a few differences in tone and score, and of course minus the mind-numbingly dumb Whedon humor. It gives way more for Flash and the Cyborg to do in this chapter, with the both of them actually being heroes and actually saving people, whereas in the theatrical, Cyborg was barely present and Flash was very hesitant to face the parademons.
Full transparency, I've never done battle. I've just pushed some people and run away.
Rather than struggling to keep up with Batman and Wonder Woman, the both of them immediately take action and earn their stripes on this team.
You good?
Yeah.
I've got this. Keep moving.
This way!
Especially the Flash, that has an insanely awesome scene of him clearing a bunch of falling debris using the Speed Force as the group of people just stare up in awe. The way that the Speed Force was directed and utilized in this film was chef's kiss. Also really enjoyed the Nightcrawler this time around, which I originally thought was a really odd vehicle design for Batman to have, and I still kind of do. It's kind of outrageous and a little impractical, but I don't know. Weirdly, it worked for me this time around. I actually liked it. Just as most of the other scenes within this film, this scene is largely superior to the original in every possible way, with the score, the tone, the action, the pacing, the relevance to the plot, and the characters' relevance within the scene. More notably, Aquaman's arrival when the Gotham Harbor starts pouring in was so much more earned, and it was so much more impactful. I actually felt it watching this movie. I felt hyped. I felt like, oh shit, it's Aquaman. And it had a lot more weight to it because we had seen the scene prior where his conversation with Falco, where he was offered the armor and the trident. And we've had a little bit of momentum built to this moment where we see that Arthur is kind of on the fence about involving himself in this. And when he arrives and holds back the river as the Justice League make their escape, it is so much more rewarding as you feel Arthur and you sense Arthur embracing his role in this world, in this league, and as an Atlantean. Plus, there isn't the inclusion of subjugating Wonder Woman to Whedon's moronic fucking boob joke that he also used Black Widow for in the Avengers.
Sorry.
Don't turn green.
After his defeat, Steppenwolf retreats back to his base where the other two remaining mother boxes begin to speak out to him and reveal to him that the anti-life equation is here on Earth's surface. For those who don't know, this is essentially the equivalent of the Infinity Stones to Darkseid's character. It allows the individual who knows the equation to completely control the will of all sentient life in the universe. No single being is immune to it. When Steppenwolf informs Desaad about the anti-life, the parademons begin to kneel as Darkseid makes his first real appearance that isn't within a flashback. The voice acting from Ray Porter in this scene is chilling. It sent goosebumps down my spine.
I will stride across their bones and bask in the glow of anti-life, and all of existence shall be mine.
Even with the very few lines that Darkseid had, just the combination of that and his presence alone has already made him one of the best DCEU villains. But surprisingly, not even Darkseid's first actual appearance ends up being the most significant moment of this chapter. That moment goes to an exchange between Lois Lane and Martha Kent in Lois's apartment, where Martha is trying to convince Lois to come back to the world of the living and to move on from the grieving process. But when she leaves Lois's apartment, it is revealed that it was actually Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is part of the race of Martians from Mars who have the ability to shapeshift, along with several other abilities such as laser vision, phasing, elasticity, telekinesis, telepathy, flight, invulnerability, super strength. I mean, they're honestly fucking broken. He's actually been disguised as General Swanwick this entire time, played by Harry Lennox, who was introduced as far back as Man of Steel. I had already known that this scene was going to happen. I had seen several interviews with Zack, and he was very vocal about wanting Martian Manhunter to be in this film, and he even revealed some of these storyboards that showed this scene of Martha coming to Lois and then turning into Martian Manhunter in a big reveal. But even knowing that it was coming, it was still so satisfying to see this character in live action and within the DCEU, and being reprised by Harry Lennox, who is a fantastic actor and does really fantastic voice work. It was really exciting getting to see this character in live action for the first time, or at least done right for the first time, because I don't know who the hell that is supposed to be in Supergirl. The chapter then comes to a close with the League contemplating whether or not to use the last remaining Mother Box to revive Superman and the repercussions of it. this was entirely swept under the rug in the theatrical version, and it was pretty much summed up to, this thing has power and maybe it can bring back Superman, so let's just fucking do it. Part 5, All the King's Horses, begins with the familiar scene of both Cyborg and Flash digging up Superman's grave to obtain his body, this time accompanied by Arthur and Diana. The exchange between Cyborg and Flash is a little bit more brief than the theatrical version, but it is significantly improved with the addition of Barry admitting and revealing that Superman is actually his hero. And it just adds another layer of relevancy when he eventually plays his part in resurrecting him and when he smiles at the sight of him. In comparison to Barry not fist bumping Cyborg because it's racially charged. Because in Whedon's mind, having a black or person of color character is just an opportunity for a race joke.
Okay, we're not ready for racially charged.
Superman's resurrection is largely the center stage for the remainder of the chapter and is significantly more fleshed out than the theatrical, as most of 75% of this movie is. His resurrection in Justice League really just felt like an afterthought to just shoehorn him in there so that the League can be together at the end and so that there would be someone to defeat Steppenwolf and save the day.
Glad I didn't miss this.
The plan is way more thought out this time, with the League actually having to sneak into the Kryptonian ship crash site and then triggering a false alarm to actually evacuate all the people out of it, as opposed to just walking right in, like with no opposition at all. The biggest addition to this entire sequence was Victor's premonition of the nightmare reality when he makes contact with the mother box. This scene fucking blew my mind. Like, my jaw hit the damn floor with this scene. This is the very same timeline that Batman vs. Superman teased several years ago, and the same one that Zack intended to center Justice League 2 and 3 on, with Darkseid returning to Earth and killing Lois Lane, who is pregnant with Superman's son. Darkseid manipulates Clark into faulting Batman for this and twists Superman into serving him, and the two of them together kill the entire Justice League and rule over an apocalyptic world. The core of the story is largely influenced by the Injustice timeline, where Superman is tricked by Joker into actually killing Lois Lane himself. He then loses grip of his sanity and his morals, kills the Joker, and turns into a malicious dictator and starts a civil war among the Justice League. Ever since it was teased in Batman vs. Superman, I have been dying to see this world or this timeline again. It was never addressed again because of the change of direction within Warner Brothers. So getting to return to this timeline with more context provided was insanely satisfying and highly exciting for me. After Cyborg gets a glimpse of the apocalypse to come, he screams out no, but Flash mistakes it for go and runs off to resurrect Superman. The scene actually held a lot more weight than the theatrical, aside from Clark's revival, by also briefly foreshadowing the Flash's ability to turn back time. The scene where Superman fights the League after his resurrection is largely the same, almost entirely, for the exception of a few additions. One of my favorites is when Flash accidentally runs into Aquaman. The best change to the scene, without a doubt, was the encounter between Batman and Superman, which I fucking hated in the theatrical. It was one of my biggest complaints. Batman is treated with respect and is not used for the butt end of a dumb, terrible fucking joke.
Yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
He actually holds his own against Superman and even manages to deflect his heat vision with his gauntlets that Alfred was developing earlier on in the film. This is Batman, not this bullshit. Lois Lane's involvement in this scene was also far more natural than the theatrical version. There was a flow of events that led to her appearance here that actually felt earned, with her introduction in part 1 that showed how she visited Superman's memorial regularly, and then her conversation with Martian Manhunter where he encouraged her to move on, which is why she decided to visit the memorial one last time. Opposed to Whedon using her as a plot point convenience for her to just show up as a plan B after showing her just one time. But the best inclusion in this chapter is without a doubt Silas Stone's, where he sacrifices himself by superheating the mother box and turning it into the hottest object in the entire world so that it can later be tracked by the Justice League, which leads them into their epic finale. This not only makes how the Justice League discovers Steppenwolf's base later on make so much more sense, but it also added so much more depth to both Silas and Victor's arc with one another, and respected Silas's character as a man of intelligence that was just completely absent within Whedon's cut. This is how Steppenwolf obtained the third Mother Box in the Justice League.
The Mother Box. He has the last one.
Part 6, Something Darker, is the final act of this 4-hour epic, and wow, there is some good shit here. To start off, the scene where Superman wanders the Kryptonian ship in search of a new armor put the doofiest smile on my face. I love Henry Cavill's Superman so much, and I love Man of Steel. It is arguably my favorite. Actually, no, it is. It is my favorite Superman movie. And this scene really just took me right back to 2013 with the hint of the Man of Steel theme, the several Kryptonian armors, the voiceover from Russell Crowe's Jor-El and Kevin Costner's Jonathan Kent. It really just subtly stitched this whole trilogy together, and it was an amazing scene. And his new black suit that mirrors the classic black suit from the Return of Superman comic was incredible. Moving on to the climax, the first and easily the most major improvement from the theatrical is the absence of the red tint hue filter that was just way too saturated and such an eyesore, along with the absence of the Russian family that lived next to the power plant that was just such a fucking pointless inclusion. For the most part, the action within this climax is relatively the same between the Snyder cut and the theatrical, just minus some more terrible Whedon writing.
Man, my toes hurt. I don't even understand the physics of how my toes hurt.
And with a lot more intense, gory action that really made for some badass sequences. But really, this entire climactic scene where the League finally assembles and works together, it feels so much more earned. It feels so much more satisfying than the theatrical ever did. After 3+ hours of storytelling and character development, this climax feels like a real reward and actually gives the same energy as the first time that the Avengers assembled in 2012, and that magic was just not present in Whedon's cut at all. Batman has a lot more to do instead of just walking around with his thumb up his ass, taking out an entire tower of parademons using their own rifles and even getting on one of their sentries, which was so badass. Aquaman and Cyborg get a lot more of the spotlight with some really sick scenes, but it's really honestly the Flash who shines the most during this finale. After Superman's arrival, when he beats the living shit out of Steppenwolf, a boom tube is opened up to reveal Darkseid alongside Desaad, and fucking granny goodness, Cyborg calls out to Flash to reenact the same maneuver that they used to resurrect Superman so that Victor can make contact with the Mother Boxes in order to separate them. But Barry becomes injured after he is clipped by one of the parademons, and because of the delay, the Unity commences and triggers an explosion that kills the entire fucking League. But before the explosion can reach Barry, he uses the Speed Force to phase through space and time. In all truth, this scene might be my favorite scene and probably the best scene of the entire film. It is gorgeous. My jaw was on the floor the entire time, no lie. With each step that Barry takes, rewinding time right to the point of the Unity, and it even shows Superman and Cyborg's body reassembling from the explosion. It was jaw-dropping. The effects were incredible. Not only did this scene do a fantastic job at perfectly capturing Flash's true power level, but it actually gave Flash significance to the story, and it didn't undermine his relevance to the team in order to demonstrate how superior Superman is. When Superman appears in the Justice League, it is essentially played off as relief. Like, oh my god, Superman is here, all of our problems are saved. Both the heroes and the audience are relieved because everyone in the room knows that Superman is about to fucking kill Steppenwolf right now. The movie really just ends when he shows up because there is just nothing that Steppenwolf can really do against Superman. They even had to write him off screen to go save a bunch of other pedestrians in order to extend the sequence by a couple more minutes, because otherwise Superman would have just ended. He would have ended Steppenwolf right there, and the movie would have ended, and that's it. And when he flies off to go save the other people, it's really just another scene of him outshining the Flash yet again.
Slowpoke.
As he lifts an entire fucking building of people, and Flash literally pushes one fucking car out of danger. One car. He's the Flash. One car.
Dostoevsky.
But now Superman was not just reduced to a plot device, and his arrival does not just end the film and save the day. It allowed for Flash to finally be the hero and to show his real relevancy to this team. Victor's arc in embracing his new form and life comes full circle so beautifully with just one simple line.
I'm not broken.
And I'm not alone.
Steppenwolf's demise is so goddamn satisfying, with Wonder Woman giving the cleanest fatality.
Wonder Woman wins. Flawless victory. Heroic brutality.
I really love that Diana dealt the finishing blow and avenged her fallen sisters that Steppenwolf had constantly taunted her over throughout the entire movie. The epic final stare down between Darkseid and the League was goosebump inducing, and it set the stage so perfectly for a sequel. There is admittingly a relatively cheesy lineup sequence where the camera pans across each League member one by one, but honestly, it didn't bother me. It really didn't. This film was literally a pipe dream to many people, including myself. Something that Zack himself never even thought would become a reality or ever be released. And now it is. This is also the last time that we are essentially going to see the last of these characters, with Affleck, Fisher, and potentially even Cavill not returning to these roles. Without the context, it could come off as too much or a little bit cheesy, but honestly, I loved it, and I really felt that it was well-deserved. It was a well-deserved send-off to these characters, that these actors put so much work into making them come alive. This team put so much work into this project. Zack put his heart and soul into this project, and it was well-deserved. It was a well-deserved send-off. The epilogue is probably the most controversial aspect of this film and is comprised of 3 main plot points that all together really wrap up the entire film. The first is essentially the real ending of the film that reveals everyone's whereabouts post-climax, with Flash landing a CSI job opportunity that will lead into the upcoming Flash solo film. Cyborg finishes his father's audio log that he destroyed earlier on in the film that makes for a beautiful, heartfelt end to their arc. Aquaman continues on with his nomadic journey that will lead right into James Wan's Aquaman. We also get to see the freaking Bat Tank from The Dark Knight Returns, along with the mutant gang actually tied up in front of it, and Superman continues his life with Lois after Bruce saves the Kent house from being sold off, with the final shot of the sequence reenacting the infamous Reeves logo reveal. John from the future had to do some reshoots and re-recording because of some technical issues, and I actually changed my curtains, if you noticed. But as I was saying, the following scene is essentially and virtually identical to the post-credit scene of the theatrical cut that revealed Lex Luthor's escape from Arkham Asylum, that transitions into an exchange with Joe Magnioli's Deathstroke arriving at Luthor's yacht. The only but most significant difference in their conversation is that Luthor actually reveals Bruce's identity to Deathstroke, which would have set up the initial plans for Ben Affleck's The Batman, which would have surrounded Deathstroke hunting down Bruce Wayne, which would have drawn major inspirations from the Arkham origin stories surrounding Slade Wilson hunting down the Batman. Because of Warner Brothers' change of plans and Whedon's change of directions, this scene was altered instead to Lex proposing to Deathstroke that they start a league of their own, foreshadowing in a sequel film, the Injustice League, a villainous team comprised of each Justice League member's mortal enemies. The most controversial and criticized scene of the entire film is its last, with another and most extensive yet return to the Nightmare timeline, with a team of the last remaining survivors from this timeline consisting of Batman, Cyborg, Mira, Deathstroke, the Flash wearing the same armor that he sported in the Batman vs. Superman scene, and Jared Leto's The Joker, making Jared Leto the only actor in history to reprise the role of the Joker for the second time.
A truce, Bruce.
When I first saw this scene and this team, my jaw was on the floor. I was so surprised with this roster, with the involvement of Deathstroke and Joker. I was even surprised at the fact that this nightmare scene was happening this far into the film to begin with. And as the scene kept progressing, I was at the edge of my seat because I really did not know where it was leading to. The R rating of this film made it possible for not only the best and my favorite line from the entire 4-hour durations of this movie, but also the best live action exchange between Batman and Joker to date. Hands down. Where Joker tells Mira after she asks him, who has he ever loved, that Batman has looked into the eyes of the people that he's loved died. And Batman responds,
That's funny. You would talk about people who died in my arms. Because when I held Harley Quinn and she was bleeding and dying, she begged me with her last breath. And when I killed you, and make no mistake, I will fucking kill you. And I do it slow. I'm gonna honor that promise.
This interaction was brilliantly written and brilliantly directed. It was superbly acted by both Leto and Affleck and was just so satisfying to watch. Although Batman was featured in Suicide Squad and technically did share a scene with the Joker, this is the first time that we see a legitimate exchange between the two, and it did not disappoint. But the dynamic between these two in just this scene alone and the final acknowledgement of his role in Jason Todd's death within this universe was so satisfying, and something that I want to see much more of. The scene ends when they are interrupted by the Nightmare Superman, and the team prepares for an epic battle when Bruce awakens from his sleep in his loft in present day. He's then greeted by Martian Manhunter, who makes his second and last appearance and tells him that Darkseid will return and that he wants to aid him in this fight, where he will soon become a Justice League member. Many people were turned off by this being the end of the film, but despite it being the last scene at the end of the film, this really isn't the actual end to this movie or to the story that was told within this movie. The actual end to the story was the very last scene of Clark. For all intents and purposes, that is the ending of the film. The scene that follows is the after credit from the theatrical release with Luthor and Deathstroke. If you take it within the context as the definitive ending of this scene, it does seem a little abrupt and left field, but it was really meant to act more as a post-credit along with the Lex Luthor and Deathstroke post-credit. The other main issue comes from Warner Brothers, who really just has their head up their ass. They are refusing to continue this story that Snyder has set up. This nightmare sequence was to set up what would have came along with the Justice League trilogy that Zack had planned out. Warner Brothers is cowering behind a piss poor excuse that they are focused on executing their own story within the multiverse, which is moronic, because with the existence of a multiverse, it allows for both the story that they want to focus on and Zack's story to happen at the same time. That's literally the point of the multiverse, is multi-timeline stories being able to be done at the same time. Despite how adamant they are about not restoring the Snyderverse, it was once just as impossible for this very same film to even be released, and now it has been, for the most part, a raging success within the fan base. So we can only hope within time that Warner Brothers will realize the money to be made with this opportunity and realize what the fans really want and what they really want to see. Despite my disappointment in the end of the Snyderverse, I'm still very excited for a lot of upcoming DC projects, specifically Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam, which Pierce Brosnan was just recently casted for as Dr. Fate, which is an immaculate casting. I'm also very excited for Zatanna. She is one of my favorite characters from the Magic roster, and I never really thought that she would get a leading film. The Green Lantern Corps series, Robert Pattinson's The Batman, which from the look of the trailers is shaping up to potentially be the best Batman film yet. And much more to come within just these next 2 years alone. Guys, thank you again so much for watching if you made it this far, and if you tuned into both my spoiler-free and this spoiler review. You guys are amazing, and the support is really so unreal to me. There's much more to come with the Godzilla vs. Kong review coming up next, followed by Mortal Kombat and some upcoming games. A lot I'm looking forward to. I definitely have a very busy schedule ahead of myself. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, leave a like and subscribe and click the little bell for notifications. Thank you for tuning in, and take care, guys.